ॐ ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। ॐ श्रीकृष्ण परमात्मने नमः। अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता दशमोऽध्यायः विभूतियोगः। श्रीभगवानुवाच भूय एव महाबाहो शृणु मे परमं वचः यत्तेऽहं प्रीयमाणाय वक्ष्यामि हितकाम्यया न मे विदुः सुरगणाः प्रभवं न महर्षयः अहमादिर्हि देवानां महर्षीणां च सर्वशः यो मामजमनादिं च वेत्ति लोकमहेश्वरम् असम्मूढः समर्थ्येषु सर्वपापैः प्रमुच्यते बुद्धिर्ज्ञानमसम्मोहः क्षमा सत्यं दमः शमः सुखं दुःखं भवो भावो भयं चाभयमेव च अहिंसा समता तुष्टिः तपोदानं यशो यशः भवन्ति भावा भूतानां मत्त एव पृथक्विधाः महर्षयः सप्त पूर्वे चत्वारो मनवस्तथा मद्भावा मानसा जाता येषां लोक इमाः प्रजाः एतां विभूतिं योगञ्च मम यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः सोऽविकम्पेन योगेन युज्यते नात्र संशयः अहं सर्वस्य प्रभवः मत्तः सर्वं प्रवर्तते इति मत्वा भजन्ते मां बुधा भावसमन्विताः मच्चित्ता मद्गतप्राणा बोधयन्तः परस्परं कथयन्तश्च मां नित्यं तुष्यन्ति च रमन्ति च तेषां सततयुक्तानां Bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam ena mamupayanti te teshamevanukampatham aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayamyatma bhavastaha jnanadipena bhasvata. Arjuna uvacha param brahma param dhama pavitram paramam bhavan purusham shashvatam divyam आदिदेवमजं विभुम् आहुस्त्वां ऋषयः सर्वे देवर्षिर्नारदस्तथा असितो देवलो व्यासः स्वयं चैव ब्रवीषि मे. Om Tat Sat.
So yesterday we said we'll repeat this shloka number 11. Shloka 10 was Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. For those who are always committed to me, seeking me with love, I give that vision whereby they reach me. So, Tesham satata yuktanam, for those who are always committed, those who are seeking in this manner, were previously called Nitya Yuktas, always committed to me, not just in the morning or evening. Ishvara is not just one of the irons in the fire for them. Their priorities are clear. They have assimilated their experiences and understand exactly what they are seeking. Seeking the truth of everything is not a pastime. It is their life. And they do not see any other pursuit that is worthwhile. They are mature. This is the essence of mumukshutva. So they get their priorities right. Seeking the truth of everything is not a pastime. It is their life. And they do not see any other pursuit that is worthwhile. Just give me 1 second. Such people have a love for the knowledge of Ishvara. What started as a curiosity becomes a desire because you cannot accept ignorance once you know that there is something to know. That is why, as I told you, if you want to make somebody miss his sleep, tell him that you have a great secret to tell him and that you will tell him tomorrow morning. Once one knows that there is something to know, one cannot but try to know it. It becomes a desire. Afterwards, this jnana, a desire to seek knowledge, becomes a love of knowledge. Once it becomes love for knowledge, then they revel, ramanti, they enjoy satisfaction, tushyanti. Then you will not ask, Swamiji, when will this seeking end? Nobody asks, when will this love end? In love, you are always happy, especially if that love is for knowledge. As long as it is a desire, it is fraught with pain because there are impediments in fulfilling a desire. Once it transforms into love for knowledge, then it is a matter of reveling. Impediments do not count. Bhagavan says, to those seeking with love, aham dadami, I give. What do I give? Buddhi yoga, the vision of myself. When you are seeking Ishvara, he has to give. He has to reveal himself. Therefore, he says, I give them that Buddhi yoga, the vision of truth, the vision of me, through which they reach me. They become one with me. The followers of Hare Krishna movement and other Dvaita schools of thought would translate these words as, I will give them the grace whereby they will come to me. Where in Goloka Vrindavan or any other heaven, previously Krishna was here, then he transferred himself to Goloka, where he has been waiting for these people to come. Because you're always singing the glories of Ishvara, you are a special invitee there. You go there and play with him. But when he plays with the others, you will have to wait. The same old problem that the gopis faced. Previously, when Krishna was playing with one gopi, another gopi would be very jealous. These are our original problems. This problem, which was here on earth, Bhuloka, will also be there in Goloka Vrindavan too. I do not know which Shastra refers to Goloka Vrindavan. No Upanishads talk about it. Goloka can be translated as the light, loka of words, go, the meaning of the words of Shruti. So this is the perception of the Dvaita school, that Bhagavan gives us the grace because you're praying to him, you're a special invite, you're a devotee of him. So you are a special invitee in this so-called Goloka Vrindavan, where he is waiting to receive you. But even there is that separation because you're there only to play with him. So the same old problems that you faced in the material world, in the Bhuloka, you have to wait for your turn because there are other gopis also playing with him. So this is in contrast to what Advaita school of thought says. When the Lord says, I give this clear vision, it is just an expression. You can say he gives and you take, but after all, Ishvara is the Atma. So there is the question of his giving anything and to whom. The Buddhi Yoga is gained, and in this, the object is nothing but Atma, which is Parameshwara. The Lord himself is the object of that knowledge. Therefore, when he says, Dadami, he means, I give them this Buddhi Yoga, whereby they recognize me, they come to me. But there is also an element of grace involved in all of this, because the obstructions, pratibandhakas, in gaining this clear vision are numerous. Therefore, Bhagavan says, those who seek me are assured of the grace they will need. Because those who seek me, jignasus, are also bhaktas. The very pursuit is bhakti. Naturally, it is able to produce a certain grace. A meditation upon Ishvara, besides being a part of the means for knowing, is also a karma. Dhyana is a mental activity and therefore able to produce karma phala. That karma phala is called grace. Anything adrishta, if it is favorable to you, it is called grace or punya. Grace is gained by this very pursuit, and because they are jignasus, they are considered bhaktas, devotees. So, the act of devotion involved in their pursuit produces a certain grace. They say that even if you just repeat the Gita without studying it, it becomes a prayer. Similarly, the Upanishads can be repeated daily as a prayer because the words are there. Words all there come from Bhagavan and describe Bhagavan. If they are repeated with Shraddha, it is a prayer and it has a result. So, it can also be taken that gaining this vision requires the grace of Ishvara. If one were to ask, why do you give this Buddhi Yoga to your devotees? What stands as an obstacle to gaining this clear vision, for destroying which you are giving this Buddhi Yoga for your devotees? Krishna answers in the next verse. Teshamevanukampartham ahamajnanajam tamaha nashayamyatma bhavastaha jnanadipena bhasvata. Tesham eva, for them alone, anukampartham, out of compassion, atma bhavastaha aham, I obtaining in the thought of the mind, jnana deepena bhasvata, by the shining lamp of knowledge, ajnanajam tamaha, delusion born of ignorance or lack of discrimination, nashayami, I destroy. For them alone, out of compassion, I, obtaining in the thought of the mind, destroy the delusion born of ignorance by the shining lamp of knowledge. Tesham eva, for those seekers who are seeking nothing but Shreyas. There is freedom from being a jiva, that is moksha. How will they get the Shreyas? Anukam partham, out of sheer compassion, Bhagavan will give them this Shreyas. Compassion is grace here, which is evoked by your own karma or prayer. So this is where the self-will, the free will is required. The self-effort is required here. That is to invoke the grace, because of which there is that compassion. How will he give them the Shreyas? Atma bhavastaha, being present in their own minds. He will give them the Shreyas. Atma bhavasta, this is a very interesting word. The simple meaning is the one who resides in the thought in the mind. Atma here refers to the antakarana, the mind, and bhava refers to vritti, the thought modification. Thus, Atma bhavasta is the one who obtains in the vritti, in the thought of everyone. By using this word, Bhagavan removes a possible misconception arising from his saying, Dadami, I give. When he says, I give, we can go away with the idea that Ishvara is located somewhere from where he hears our petition and answers. This tendency to put a distance between ourselves and Ishvara is a continuing problem. This tendency to put a distance between ourselves and Ishvara is a continuing problem. Whenever Bhagavan says Dadami, etc., this problem arises. To counteract it, he says here, Atma bhavastaha aham. I am the one who obtains in the vritti, in the very thought of the seeker as Paramatma. I obtain in your mind as aham, 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 purely in the form of consciousness. As Ishvara, I shine in the form of your own Swarupa. Later in the 15th chapter, he will say, Sarvasya cha aham hridi sannivishtaha. I obtain in the heart, hridi, in the buddhi of everyone. Here the same thing is conveyed by saying, aham atma bhavastaha. So that I that is there within us, not the small I that we identify with the ahankara, but the big I. That is nothing but this pure consciousness, which is Paramatma.
So Paramatma is not someone sitting somewhere else in Goloka Vrindavan or in heaven or some other place, and that we reach him. He is there right within. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishtaha. I obtain in the heart, hridi, of everyone, in the buddhi of everyone. So this orientation that we normally have, we have to change and replace that thought that Bhagwan is somewhere up in the heaven to he is right here and now, in the mind, in the thought. He's there in every aspect of our lives, of creation, of the universe. Obtaining as the very essence of every thought, what does Parameshwara do? Nashayami, I destroy. Because of the seriousness and devotion of their commitment, a certain conducive condition is created in the minds of the Jignasus. In that conducive condition called grace, Aham Nashayami, I destroy. What does he destroy? So the Jignasus, because of their commitment and devotion, dedication to the path, they create a conducive environment which is born of grace. That conducive condition is called grace. And in that conducive condition, Bhagwan Nashayami. He says, Aham Nashayami. What does he destroy? Tamaha, darkness. Shankara says it is Moha Andhakara, delusion. Bhagwan says, the delusion of darkness I destroy. This delusion is born of ignorance, Ajnanaja, or you can call it Aviveka, lack of discrimination. Out of lack of discrimination is born the false notion of the self being the body, mind, etc. And again, the reverse, the notion of the body, mind, sense complex being the self. So it's both ways. It is purely because of aviveka or ajnana, that the false notion that the self is the body, mind, etc. And then the reverse is also true. That is, the body, mind, sense complex being the self. These false notions about oneself, which in a word we call mithya pratyaya, I destroy, aham nashayami. Who is this aham? Not someone somewhere, but the one obtaining as the very essence of the vritti, the truth of any thought. How does he destroy? How beautiful. Every paragraph he talks of. The previous one was, what does he destroy? He destroys this ignorance, this moha andhakara, which is born of ignorance and aviveka, which is, in one word, it's called the mithya pratyaya. And then how does he destroy? Jnana deepena bhasvata, by the shining light of knowledge. The destruction of delusion does not require any weapon. All that is involved is a simple lighting of a lamp. When the whole problem is ignorance and delusion, all you require is a flame of knowledge that leaves no dark corner anywhere in your buddhi. That is why the adjective bhasvata is used for jnana deepena. It is not a knowledge clouded with doubts and vagueness, but a shining, smokeless flame of knowledge that leaves nothing to be desired. It leaves no shadows of ignorance in your mind. By that lamp I destroy, says Bhagavan. You do not destroy, I do. This is another interesting thing. In a confluence, when the river reaches the ocean, you have no idea whether the river flows into the ocean or the ocean reaches out and enters the river. You will find that for a mile at least from the ocean, the river water is saline. You can sometimes even see the flow of the river reverse as in a tidal bore that we've seen. But just tidal bore is a high, often dangerous wave caused by the surge of a flood tide upstream in a narrowing part, the lower course of a river, where its current is met by the tides. So the river is actually narrowing down, but at that point where the ocean meets the river, there is often a dangerous wave caused by the flood tide. Thus, you find you do not know whether the river is reaching the ocean or the ocean is reaching out to the river. That is what is said here. The knowledge reaches out to you, as it were. It is not you reaching knowledge or you recognizing knowledge. It is that knowledge reaches you. Do we gain knowledge of Atma or is it given? You will find both kinds of expressions in the Shastra. One is that you recognize me or reach me, gaining this knowledge through your own pursuit. But in fact, you do not gain this knowledge. In every other knowledge, there is a subject, a jnana karta, a knower involved, and there is also an object of knowledge involved. In the knowledge, I am ghataha, this is a pot, for example, the pot is an object which is objectified by me through my mind. Because I am the one who objectifies the pot, I say, this is a pot. I am ghataha. In this, the subject is not cancelled. That is, the I is not cancelled. You are the one observing the pot. The I is retained, the subject is retained, and the object is known by the subject. This is true in all forms of knowledge. But when it comes to Atma Jnana, the Kartritva itself is destroyed. The notion that I am the knower is destroyed by the knowledge that I am pure consciousness, which is Brahman. Aham Shuddham Kevalam Chaitanyam Brahma. The Ahankara itself is resolved into a flame of knowledge. So there is no distinction between the subject and the object. Although initially in your pursuit, there is a seeming an object that exists in the form of knowledge or Atma. But once with this knowledge, the Ahankara resolves, and therefore there is no Kartritva there. There is no Karta there. The knower, knowledge, and the known, all of them merge. The reason there is no Karta involved in this knowledge is that the Pramana is not in the hands of the Ahankara. However, when you use perception as a means of knowledge, the perception is in your hands. You are the Karta. So here the distinction is between using Pramana as the means for knowledge versus perception. So using the means of knowledge known as perception, you see this pot, this tree, etc. Similarly, inference, Anumana implies a Karta. Only presupposing the existence of the subject, the knower, does inference operate. Only presupposing the existence of the subject, that is the knower, does inference operate. You need a point of reference, no? Otherwise, how will you infer? So therefore, the subject is important when you infer and when you use perception as the means of knowledge. In the statement, I infer, there is a subject. Presumption, arthapatti, another form of inference, also presupposes a knower. So arthapatti is presumption. You presume that there is something. Then the knowledge of the absence of something, like my not having a pot in my hand, karatale ghataha nasti, arrived at through the pramana called anupalabdhi, also implies the existence of the knower. So all these, there are different forms of inference. One is the presupposing, that is the arthapatti. The second is anupalabdhi, that is presupposing the absence of something, the knowledge of the absence of something. That is the anupalabdhi. That also implies the existence of the knower. By the pramana called anupalabdhi, I gain the knowledge that a thing does not exist. That involves a karta. So does the knowledge gain through upamana. You may be told that a bison is like a water buffalo. You know what a water buffalo is, but not a bison. The illustration, upamana, of the water buffalo gives rise to indirect knowledge of a bison. When you see a bison, remembering the illustration of the water buffalo, you gain direct knowledge of the bison. All this implies a subject. A karta is required for all of this. So the subject is never cancelled. When you know about a cell, an atom, or a particle, the subject is involved. Even if you know something about your psychological past, there too the subject is involved. You make inferences as, I am responding to this in this way because of what happened to me before. That inferential connection is made by the karta, the subject. So in all of this, arthapatti, anupalabdhi, anumana, all of the upamanas are not upamana, all of them presuppose a subject. A subject is required for that knowledge to happen. In fact, in all these, the subject is untouched. But when you expose yourself to Shabda Pramana, particularly Vedanta, the Karta does not operate. Once it has placed itself in a situation where such knowledge can take place, it does nothing further. Like a river which has come to a point from where it sights the ocean, after that, it does not do anything. The ocean takes care of it. It is the same here. You're going to a teacher and exposing yourself to the teaching is all done by your own will. It does not happen automatically. You have to place yourself in a condition where knowledge can take place. Then Shabda, the words take over. This is so beautiful, right? So with respect to Atma Jnana, particularly Vedanta, Shabda Pramana, there is no karta. When you are dealing with Shabda Pramana, there is no karta. So like the river, when it sights the ocean, it loses its identity. They become one. And it does not do anything. It just flows, and then at some point the ocean meets it. The ocean takes care of it. It is the same here. So our effort, free will is required where to go to a teacher and exposing ourselves to this knowledge. But once, even that does not happen automatically. That requires free will, that requires also grace. You have to place yourself in a condition where knowledge can take place. Then Shabda, the words take over. Then that love for knowledge itself will take over the whole thing. The sentence that gives the knowledge is Tat Tvam Asi. In the process of understanding this, firstly, the meaning of the word Tvam, you, is analyzed properly, and then Tat, Ishvara, is also analyzed properly. Then the Akhanda Artha, the meaning of identity that is involved in the sentence, is recognized. What does that recognition do? First, let us understand how the recognition takes place. It has to occur in the buddhi, because that is where the ignorance is destroyed by the buddhi vritti, eliminating the notion that the self is merely the subject. The subject is the self, but the self is not the subject. The knower, known, knowledge are all one and the same. Where is the subject? Where is the object? Atma is free from all three of them. It is Brahman. I will read this middle part one more time. So what does this recognition do? First of all, the knowledge is what? Tat Tvamasi. In the process of understanding this, firstly, the meaning of Tvam, you, is analyzed properly, and then Tat, Ishvara, is also analyzed properly. Then the Akhanda Artha, the meaning of identity that is involved in the sentence, is recognized. What does that recognition do? First, let us understand how the recognition takes place. It has to occur in the buddhi, because that is where the ignorance is destroyed by the buddhi vritti, eliminating the notion that the self is merely the subject. The subject is the self, but the self is not the subject. The knower, known, knowledge are all one and the same. Where is the subject and where is the object? Atma is free from all three of them. It is Brahman. This recognition that the self is Brahman swallows the subject. So, how can you say that you gain it? Through the Shastra, Ishvara alone gives this knowledge. You do nothing to gain it. Since the Ahankara is not involved, it is proper to say that Ishvara gives you this knowledge. Even though in the previous verse the Lord said, I give this vision, aham buddhi yogam dadami, here he says, in fact, I do not give anything. Remaining in the buddhi as a very truth of the buddhi vritti, I only remove the ignorance. Ajnanajam tamaha nashayam. Dadami is now replaced by nashayam. One is positive, the other is negative. In the positive expression, something is giving. Yeah, the one is positive, the other is negative. In the positive expression, there can be a division. Someone is giving, someone is receiving. Because division implies duality, there is the possibility of a wrong understanding that there is a giver and that Ishvara gives. It can look as though something positive is given. Some kind of knowledge is superimposed upon or thrown into the buddhi. It is not like that. In fact, there is no giving involved. Bhagavan is only destroying ignorance. Knowledge is not something that happens. What really happens is that ignorance, ajnana, is removed. Then, why do we have such expressions as gaining knowledge? Because a vritti is necessary to destroy ignorance. We say knowledge occurs. But in fact, knowledge does not occur. What happens is that the vritti is produced and it destroys ignorance. Knowledge is not created. Ajnana is removed. So profound. Knowledge is always there. The reason why we are not able to recognize it is because of this veil of ajnana, veil of maya. So once that is removed with the light of knowledge, then the light will shine forth. And for that, we need to prepare our buddhi. Once the buddhi is enough prepared, with dedication, devotion, commitment, living the life of a karma yogi, practicing dhyana yoga, you invoke grace. And from that grace, that because of anukampatham, out of compassion, Ishvara will bestow, dadami, he gives the knowledge. It is not really giving and taking because there are no two involved here. Ishvara is Atma, Atma is the Jiva. The Jivatma is the same as the Atma. So when there is no dual, where is giving and where is taking? So who is giving and who is taking? So what happens is only the veil of ignorance is removed. So then that merging happens, that you reach him, so to say. That is why this whole process is a process of nivritti and not pravritti. Pravritti implies a karta. In this nivritti, the karta itself is negated. The removal of ignorance of the self being Brahman is what is called knowledge here. Positively, nothing happens. If knowledge is something that can be positively given and it is given to someone who is ignorant, that person will remain ignorant. Knowledge would merely get superimposed upon him. The truth is that knowledge always is. That chit, sat, chit is always there. We only remove the ignorance that conceals it. And knowledge is always true to the object. Atma is Brahman. If that Brahman is limitless, it is limitless all the time. And the knowledge of it is also as true as the object. If Ishvara is omniscient, then all knowledge exists already. No new knowledge is ever created. In your mind, it may not exist, but to correct that, all we have to do is bring in the particular buddhi vritti, which is able to destroy ignorance. To know that Atma is Brahman, we bring in the buddhi vritti that will destroy self-ignorance. There can be obstacles to that. To remove them, you require grace. From that perspective, Bhagavan can say, I give this vision. Aham buddhi yogam dadami. I'm going to read from the middle of this, or maybe the whole paragraph. If knowledge is something that can be positively given, and it is given to someone who is ignorant, that person will remain ignorant. Knowledge would merely get superimposed upon him. The truth is that knowledge always is. We only remove the ignorance that conceals it. Therefore, the knowledge shines forth. And knowledge is always true to the object. Atma is Brahman. If that Brahman is limitless, it is limitless all the time. And the knowledge of it is also as true as the object. If Ishvara is omniscient, then all knowledge exists already. No new knowledge is ever created. In your mind, it may not exist, but to correct that, all we have to do is bring in this particular buddhi vritti, which is able to destroy ignorance. To know that Atma is Brahman, we bring in the buddhi vritti that will destroy self-ignorance. There can be obstacles to that. So to remove them, you require grace. So you require grace to remove all the pratibandhakas. Therefore, the need for us to pray, to be devoted, to be a bhakta, to be a karma yogi. From that perspective, Bhagavan can say, I give this vision. Aham buddhi yogam dadami. The dawn of knowledge is like the lighting of an oil lamp. Shankara explains very beautifully this imagery of the lamp, taking it as an oil lamp. A lighted oil lamp implies a few things: oil, wick, flame, and oxygen. And Shankara explains all the parts of the analogy. What is the oil for this lamp? Shankara says that the oil, sneha, is bhakti, devotion and cheerfulness. Sneha can also mean affection or love. What is the difference between love and devotion? Where there is respect and reverence with the love, there is devotion, bhakti. So bhakti is devotion, bhakti is love coupled with respect. Respect and reverence with the love is devotion. Love, when it is for Ishvara, involves a certain supplication, a surrender, and looking up to. This appreciation and respect is implied in bhakti. Thus, love with respect and reverence is bhakti. Shankara says that the wick of the lamp must be abhisikta, soaked with the oil, sneha, which is cheerfulness and bhakti. So the oil is bhakti, right? Now, I find that I is here is Swamiji. I find that spiritual speakers become very serious. There is a sadness about them. I have seen some of these people who have dedicated their lives to certain organized religions for the pursuit of God. They are so frightened, all because they see all their thoughts as either virtuous or sinful. Thoughts are just thoughts, neither good nor bad. Only actions are right or wrong because they produce results. But then, if one deliberately meditate upon or prays for the fall of someone, then it is an act, a mental act. We take it as a karma. Thus, there are no good or bad thoughts. They are only thoughts, and there are proper or improper actions, be they mental, verbal, or physical. Only if you understand this can you be cheerful. And this is not an ordinary thing to understand. Thus, to light this lamp of knowledge, the wick has to be soaked in the oil of cheerfulness and devotion to the Lord. This is so beautiful. So thoughts are just thoughts. When they're neither good nor bad. What Swamiji has observed is that people who are on this pursuit of God, they become serious because they tend to judge themselves by the thoughts they get. They classify them as either virtuous thoughts or sinful thoughts. But then Swamiji says they are just thoughts. It is only actions can be either right or wrong. Either actions, physical or mental. Mental action, he gives an example of when you are meditating or praying that person XY, you're praying that there is that person falls or you're wishing him ill. That becomes a mental activity. That is wrong. So thoughts cannot be good or bad. They just come. You have no control over the thoughts. But what you have is about the mental activity on which thought you are holding on to and what goes on in your mind, as in what you are scheming, what you are contemplating, that you have a control. That becomes right or wrong. That your verbal actions, physical actions. So a certain degree of cheerfulness is required in order to get this knowledge. And for that, sneha, the oil in the lamp, is the oil of cheerfulness. When you understand that thoughts are just thoughts, and you don't label yourself as good or bad, and you understand that it's only actions that are right or wrong, then you get this certain amount of cheerfulness. What is the wick for this lamp? The wick is the preparedness of the buddhi, purified by the study of the Shastra, with a proper attitude and all other disciplines under the tutelage of a guru. This wick obtains in the lamp of the Antakarana. So what is the wick? Oil is the oil of cheerfulness or bhakti. The wick is the preparedness of the buddhi,
purified by the study of the Shastra with a proper attitude and all other disciplines under the tutelage of a guru. So it is a Shuddha Antakarana. This wick obtains in the lamp of the Antakarana. This lamp should be protected from strong winds. So where is the lamp? The lamp is the Antakarana. The wick is the Shuddha Antakarana, the Buddhi which is purified. Shankara says the strong winds which may blow off the lamp are the binding likes and dislikes. But then the flame has to be sustained by air. That air, Shankara says, is the Buddhi Vritti, which recognizes the identity between the Jiva and Ishvara, accomplished by constant contemplation. So beautiful. Just by taking this upamana of the lamp, of the wick, of the oil, and the air that is required, the strong winds that may put the flame off, is sufficient enough for us to just go into that contemplative state. So the wick is the purified buddhi, or the lamp is the antakarana, and then the strong winds that can put off the flame are the likes and dislikes. And what is the air that is required for the lamp to glow is the buddhi vritti. That is either tattvamasi or aham brahmasmi, which recognizes the identity between the jiva and Ishvara, accomplished by constant contemplation. So when either of them is not there, you cannot light the flame of knowledge. So you cannot get knowledge when you don't have oil, when you don't have the wick, when you don't have a lamp. Where are you going to light the lamp? So you need a lamp for that. So the antakarana. And then air is so important. That is the pramana, the buddhi vritti that happens. Having listened to the words of Krishna on the glories of Ishvara, Arjuna now asks a question. The important thing to understand here is that the Gita is a dialogue. Its subject matter is primarily to be understood. Very few things are meant for belief. The main issues are to be understood, and some of them, like values, attitudes, etc., are meant to be understood and lived up to. So, there is a certain will involved here. But when Bhagwan talks about realities, that is purely to be understood. Even beliefs require some understanding. Since there is a lot to be understood, there is a dialogue. And now Arjuna makes a request to the Lord. So what is the dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna? It is a samvada. Krishna-Arjuna samvade. Right? So shall I continue with the next? I'll just chant the next verse. Maybe we'll have time for the next two verses. Arjuna uvacha param brahma param dhama pavitram paramam bhavan purusham shashvatam divyam adidevamajam vibhum ahustvam rishayas sarve devarshirnaradastatha asito devalo vyasaha swayam chaiva bravishime. Arjuna said, Uvacha said, Bhavan, O revered one, you are Param Brahma, limitless Brahman, Param Dhama, the light of all lights, Paramam Pavitram, the most purifying, Sarve Rishayaha, all the sages, Devarshihi, Naradaha Tatha, including Narada, who is the sage among gods, Asitaha Devalaha Vyasaha, Asita, Devala, Vyasa, Twam, Ahuhu, talk of you as Purusham Shashvatam, eternal being, Divyam, not of this world, that is celestial, Adi Devam, the source of all the gods, Ajam, unborn, Vibhum, all pervasive, Swayam Cha Eva, and indeed yourself, Bravishime, tell me so. Arjuna Uvacha, Bhavan Param Brahma,
Parandhama, Pavitram Paramam, Sarve Rishayah, Devarshihi Naradaha Tatha, Asitaha Devalaha Vyasah, Twam Ahuhu, Purusham Shashvatam, Divyam, Adi Devam, Ajam Vibhum, Swayam Cha Eva, Pravishime. Arjuna said, O revered one, you are limitless Brahman, the light of all lights, the most purifying. All the sages, including Narada, the sage among gods, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa, talk of you as the eternal being, not of this world, the source of all the gods, unborn and all pervasive. And indeed, you yourself tell me so. So Arjuna is like reiterating, he's saying, all of them talk about you as this, and you yourself are telling me this. Arjuna reveals his understanding of what he has been taught. This is the first time Arjuna is saying, oh, this is what I have understood. This is what it is. Having listened to Krishna through these chapters, Arjuna has a certain understanding of the topic. He now speaks from his understanding. All the sages talk about you, O Krishna, as being Parandhama. But Dhama is used here in the sense of light. Dhama, the word Dhama is derived from the root Dha. Here it has the meaning of Rashmi. It also has the meaning of abode, Dhama. Dhama is used here in the sense of light. As light helps you to see things, so too this is the light of all lights, the light of consciousness. You are the source of all consciousness. You are the consciousness. With Dhamma, in the sense of abode, you are the most exalted end, reaching which there is no further end possible or necessary. Then he says, you are Bhavan Pavitram Paramam. There are a lot of things which purify the mind and bring solace to it. But how can one ever completely purify the Antakarana, which is subject to Punya Papa Karmas? Nothing can get rid of these except the knowledge of Ishvara. Therefore, you are the Pavana, the one who is the most purifying. The knowledge of the Lord, when he reveals himself, destroys the Jiva, the individual who feels isolated, frightened, and bound. In the wake of knowledge of the Lord, the Jivatva, the feeling of isolation, is destroyed. That is because the knowledge of the Lord is knowing that I am non-separate from the Lord. Here, the knowledge is that the subject, the knower, the knowledge, and the object of knowledge are one and the same. If it is knowledge of myself, then the object of knowledge is myself. The knowledge is as true as myself, and the subject is myself. So, the one who knows is also myself. Here, the subject, object, and the knowledge are all one. Therefore, by that knowledge, Ishvara completely purifies a jiva. The samsari, who is a limited individual, subject to birth and death, is totally released. There is nothing more purifying pavana. I will just read up till the next verse. Then Arjuna goes on to say that all rishis talk of you as Purusham Nityam Shashvatam. The word Purusha has two meanings. The one who enclosed by the body, mind, sense complex is called Purusha. And Purusha is also that which fills up everything. So when you repeat this word, Purushaha, Purushaha, Purusha is Purusha, it becomes a Mahavakya. When you say Purushoham Purushaha, it means the one who obtains in the body, mind, sense complex, seemingly enclosed, is indeed the limitless Purusha, filling up everything. So when you repeat this word, Purushaha, 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 Purusha is Purusha. It becomes a Mahavakya. If you say Purushoham
Purushaha, it means the one who obtains in the body mind sense complex, seemingly enclosed, is indeed the limitless Purusha, filling up everything. Purusha, being limitless, is not bound by time and therefore is Shashvata. Divya means something of an exalted nature that is not of this world. Alaukika. It is, it is Alaukika, not Alaukika. Alaukika. It is unlike anything we know. When we have no example to explain something extraordinary, we use the word Divya. Adi Deva means the one who was there before the beginning of all the Devas, the God of gods, their very source. And he is Aja, the one who is unborn, not subject to birth at all. And he is the cause of everything, Vibhu, all pervasive, the one from whom everything has come and who sustains everything in the sense that his mandate is followed by everybody. Arjuna cites others who concur. People who say all this about Krishna are those who know. In every generation, there will be a few. Arjuna says that what he had said in the previous verse about Krishna is not only his personal observation, but that of the sages who really knew the subject matter and whose opinion you cannot dismiss. Also, he says, all the rishis of Devaloka, including Devarshi Narada, say the same thing. Other rishis like Asita, Devala, and Vyasa also say that this is what you are. They may all say so, but suppose the person himself says he is not Bhagwan, not here. Therefore, Arjuna says, even you yourself have told me that you are Ishvara. Swayam evacha bravishi me. We'll stop here. And Arjuna goes on to give us the 14th verse. So I will chant the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th verse, and then we'll close for Manana. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam priti-purvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam enamamupayanti te. For those who are always committed to me, seeking me with love, I give that vision whereby they reach me. Teshamevanukampartham ahamajnanajam tamaha nashayamyatmabhavastaha jnanadipena bhasvata. For them alone, out of compassion, I, obtaining in the thought of the mind, destroy the delusion born of ignorance by the shining lamp of knowledge. Arjuna uvacha param brahma param dhama pavitram paramam bhavan purusham shashvatam divyam adidevam vibhum ahustvam rishayas sarve devarshirnaradastatha asito devalo vyasaha Swayam Chaiva Bravishime. Arjuna said, O revered one, you are limitless Brahman, the light of all lights, the most purifying. All the sages, including Narada, the sage among gods, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa, talk of you as the eternal being, not of this world, the source of all the gods, unborn and all pervasive. And indeed, you yourself tell me so. Let's close our eyes and reflect on all that we have learned and listened.
Jai Gurudev. Let us share our understanding. Like how Arjuna has very nicely put up his understanding, we'll also put up our understanding. So this Tesham Satata Yuktanam. So these seekers, the Jignasus, who have their priorities right. It's not just in the morning or in the evening or when, as a pastime, when they have nothing else to do, they pick up the Gita and then they read or chant and understand. They have this is their very life. This is the only thing they seek. Desham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. And for such people, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Ena Mam Upayanti. So for such people, I will give the knowledge. Here it is not give and take. He says knowledge is always there. Only that what gets removed is the veil of ignorance. And that beautiful upamana of the lamp. And how does he do that? By shining the lamp of knowledge, he removes the darkness. The darkness is removed. And for the lamp, what is required is a wick. You require oil, you require a lamp, and of course you require air for the lamp to glow. So the oil, sneha is bhakti, cheerfulness. And how do you get this cheerfulness? When you do not label yourself as good or bad, or you're based on the thoughts that you get. Where your actions, you chisel out, purify your actions by doing the right actions, going on the right side of the law, being dharmic. Then you develop that the mental, physical, verbal actions are all dharmic. Then you develop this kind of cheerfulness, this happiness of temper. That is the sneha. And then that coupled with love and respect, that becomes sneha, that becomes bhakti. So when this wick is soaked in this bhakti, and what is the wick? It is the buddhi that is purified, and purified by these right actions, by the right way of living, and by approaching a guru, seeking this knowledge, seeking the truth of everything. And the lamp is the antakarana. Maybe there's a fine distinction between the lamp and the wick here that Swamiji is talking about. Maybe we can discuss that. And then the wind that, the air that is required is the buddhi vritti, the Vedanta Vakyas of Aham Brahmasmi. When you're fanning when this is available constantly in your contemplation, then the lamp gets lit. And we should safeguard it against the strong winds of raga and dvesha. Very beautiful. So I would request everybody also to share whatever little their takeaway is. Let them, I think it will be important for us to share.
You know, the one.
Okay, you go on, Dr. Mara.
The Tesham Anukampartham, right? That Anukampartham is compassion. I
Yeah,
forgot.
out of compassion. Correct.
Out of compassion, right? Tesham anukampartam aham ajnanam tamaga nashaya. So out of compassion, he dwells in the, I mean, he destroys the ajnanam, which is ignorance, and he lights the lamp of wisdom, or the knowledge. So, so that's what that one is, right? Atma bhavastu. So he Jnana Deepena Bhasvata. So that but then the previous one is the one he said Nityasham Sadata Yuktanam, right? That one is the you mentioned about the, sorry, is that the one with that the ocean coming, this one, Mahupa, and this the he gave you the
Example
example of
of the, and that
ocean.
thing was for that Dadami, where he talks of whether he gives or you get. It's whether the river reaches the ocean or the ocean
Reaches.
reaches the river. So it's
uh,
not. It is
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. It is that
So
that is the
yeah, here he talks about the love and devotion. That is at Satata Yuktanam. Sada, you thinking about it, right? Bhajantam Priti Purvakam Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mamu Payante. Okay. So he kind of grants. Here's the granting part comes in the previous verse, and then the second part is where the lights the lamp. I mean, lighting lamp, meaning giving that gray, the wisdom and to destroy the ignorance. There's two verses. It's really nice verse. Talking about that ocean and the thing, right? I saw one video that Vijayji sent it I couldn't read all the videos. This people, I mean, I think Dr. Savita also placed something, but that one there, he said the Lebanese person, some song or something like that. They gave same that ocean, the river trembles going into the ocean,
yeah.
thinking
That
of,
was Khalil Gibran, and
yeah.
it
So
was yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, he was talking about that. It was kind of compared to somewhat like I mean the person's end point, like in afraid of death or dying, that kind of stuff. But then this Upamana that we are kind of mixing with our own that mukti or whatever that we call, that is moksha, right? It's a little bit different, but then again, they added in that he mentioned different authors, different religion, but all the same thing. In the end, he mentions the Bhagavad Gita also. I am everything and everything is me. Like that also he brought it. In that.
Yeah,
So
it is
it's a
similar,
nice
but
video to see.
correct,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
correct. But
Yeah.
here in this particular stanza, what
Yeah.
why he's brought up this example is to
Worship.
say knowledge is always there. It is not. You don't need someone to give you or
Right.
you get it.
Exactly.
Atma, knowledge,
Uh-huh.
the fact what he wanted to bring up here with that example of the river and the ocean is that
Ocean. Yeah.
there is no one giving, no one taking. It is always there.
Mm. Yeah.
So
It's happening something naturally, right? Like
yeah.
there is no way to go back anywhere.
Mm,
It but to
mm,
mix in the ocean.
mm.
So I kind of nice, wondering, like, oh, yeah, even though the meaning, little different, this one I like
It
it.
was coincidental that he posted it
Coincidence
now.
we're reading. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And
Dr.
who is that
Satya,
author? Is it? Is a Lebanese
Khalil
guy?
Gibran. Khalil Gibran.
Gibran. Okay, okay. Is it some poetry kind of thing? But it wasn't
Yeah.
poet. They kind of made the video.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Dr. Savita, you wanted to share something?
Yeah, Jai Gurudev. It is like when we were reading, do we gain knowledge of Atma or is it given? So I was just relating it with the chapter 6 where we read how that Atma can be seen different, how can it be seen differently rather than how we see an object. Like it was pot was compared with the Atma. So that was clearer, but in that there was two things were involved, two operations there were, like one is that you the vritti which assumes that form, and the second is that the recognition of that vritti. So the pot is recognized, but in case of Atma, the uh, only the only like the ob- only the recognition of the vritti is there. It is not to be recognized. Like there is no drashta or seer in case of Atma. Only the objectification is there. But when we were reading the second paragraph, like this anupalabdhi and upamana,
Attapatti, Upamana.
attapati, these are all the inferences and inferences or the perception part of how like different terms are given. So how you infer or you perceive, that is not the way to that is how you are subject, like you are objectifying the subject, right? So it is that something like something confusing is some confusion is there in the latter part. Even if you know something about your psychological past, there too the subject is involved. You make inferences such as I am responding to this in this way because of what happened to me before. That inferential connection is made by the karta, the subject. What does the Swamiji want to say in this paragraph? I could not follow this.
See, this was, he was giving an example of, so the subject is never cancelled. In all of these, in all the examples he's given, the different forms, the Anupalabdhi, Arthapatti, Upamana, there is a subject which is there. It is because you cannot infer who is the person inferring, the subject is inferring.
Subject, right.
So the subject is always there. So all this implies a subject. So the subject is never cancelled. When you know about a cell, an atom, or a particle, the subject is involved. Even if you know something about your psychological past, there too the subject is, there is a subject involved. Therefore, you're able to go back to the past and remember what happened to your past, right? So you make inferences such as, I am responding to this in this way because of what happened to me before. This inferential connection is made by the karta, the subject. So he's only bringing up the fact that whatever in the material world that we see, that we infer, there is a subject-object relationship. In fact,
And while we see the Atma, there is no subject, there is no karta, right?
where
If you see the Atma aspect, if
right.
if the self knowledge is to be there,
Mm.
then there is no karta, no drashta. It's like that. How to explain?
It's like that river going into the ocean, right? So that
Yeah.
example of the river merging with the ocean, the river loses its identity. So it becomes the ocean. So there is no difference there. The knower, known, and the knowledge, all of them merge into one Advaita. So that is
And
why
it
in
is
this paragraph he's saying, when in fact all of these, the subject is untouched, but when you expose yourself to the Shabda Pramana, so the
the contrast he is bringing about is Shabda Pramana versus inference.
Inference.
So with the Shabda Pramana, when you have that Brahma Jnana Vritti, when you keep telling, when you're contemplating on that, in that aspect, in that Shuddha Antakarana, that Shuddha Naischalya, that Antakarana Naischalya is there, with that Brahma Jnana Vritti, Aham Brahmasmi, then at one point even the Vritti dissolves. The Ahankara dissolves and you are one with Atma. So there's only one then. So then there is no subject-object relationship, no?
Yeah.
Is Sabda Pramana is like more like what we are saying ourselves in our mind? Is that, or the thought that goes in our mind?
Yeah, Shabda Pramana is all that we learn it from Vedanta, the Upanishadic Vakyas, Bhagavad Gita, all that is part of the Shabda Pramana.
Okay. Sabda means like coming from
Words.
Veda.
Words, yeah, Veda.
Word.
Vedanta.
Shruti also the same thing,
The
right?
same. She is Vedanta also. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Brahma.
Yeah.
So the pramana is the means of the knowledge.
Pramana is the means of knowledge.
Knowledge. Okay.
And all these other inferences are given, they're all examples given for us to understand the knowledge. But they always imply a subject-object relationship, like this I am Ghataha. You will have to see, I mean, unless there is a separation, how would you see that that is Ghata? Right? So there is an object, there is the thought of I am Ghataha. You are able to recognize that. And you are the subject. So there is that difference is there. But this difference when with respect to self-knowledge, with respect to Atma Jnana, that dissolves. There is no difference between the subject, object, and the knowledge. All of them merge.
The next paragraph where you read the Tattvamasi, the meaning about Aganda Artha,
Khanda.
it's being that if the ignorance is destroyed by the buddhi vritti, which is what we read in the previous somewhere else also. But then again here there is no karta, nobody's involved, just it happens. It sounds like, because the veil of ignorance is removed, and then the realization happens like that. So that sentence also is said, right? The subject is the self, but the self is not the subject. Meaning, self is not the subject, meaning the Atma is not the subject. Is that what it is? Like the subject is the self, but the self is not the subject. The knower, known, knowledge, all are one and the same. Where is the subject? Where is the object? He says Atma is free from all three of them. It's Brahman. So obviously, yeah, it's not subject, object, or is non-doer.
Yeah, this sentence, the subject is the self, but the self is not the subject, is seemingly confusing. It is like the fourth and the fifth shlokas in chapter 9, where Matsthani Sarva Bhutani.
Yeah. Yeah, some of paradox, sometimes it will confusing with which self is this, self meaning myself versus that self is, when we say the self is also implies the Atma or, Brahman, whatever. So, yeah.
So here, I think how we need to understand probably is like how Swamiji explained in chapter 9 for the shlokas 4 and 5, is that self is not dependent on the subject for its existence. The subject is the self. all the body-mind complex, all of that is the self.
Mm.
But the self is not dependent. The self is the Sat Vastu, right? And all of
Right.
this extra, all the body-mind complex is the Mithya,
Complex. Right.
is Mithya. So
Mm.
Satya is alone, that is self-evident, self-existent.
Mm.
All of this is the self, but the self is not the subject. So that, I think we need to
That
bring in
Not
element
the subject. Yeah, that
dependent
means,
on one. Yeah.
okay. That's okay.
That's how I understood it. Otherwise,
Sattvastu is not the subject, but the self plus the body mind complex is self,
correct.
the subject, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
got that. Yes, I was trying to, but when you talk it out louder, sometimes things can become clearer to me.
Right.
Thanks.
It is good that we are having this discussion.
Mhm.
Anyone else wants to share before we close? Tomorrow, we're having a quiz. I'll put up the details in the group. So everyone is welcome. You can in fact invite your other friends also who have not been attending this. They can all come. In fact, that group has about 100 plus, more than 100 plus people. So it is open to everyone. This is only to kindle interest. It is not to put away people or that is not the intent. The intent is only to bring in that aspect of fun, aspect of self-evaluation for all of us who've been on this for a length of time, for us to reflect this and see, how this knowledge is stayed within us. So let's all meet up tomorrow, the same time, and we'll have this quiz. It mainly involves chapters 6 and 9. So you can go through the shlokas, go through the meanings in the PDF. There will also be some general questions about Bhagavad Gita. So I was thinking from today onwards, we'll close on time. We'll respect and value time. I know I've been saying this for a long time, but the love for chapter 6, I think, has gone us to extend more by 10 minutes or so. I think we'll stop here today. If anyone wants to say anything before we close or any questions you have, please ask. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you.
Dr. Mara and Dr. Savita, I just wanted to let you know, the questions will be put up as a PowerPoint. So there will not be a need for any one of us to spell out the question. So that's fine. Huh? Just keep your answers. Maybe in case there is a need, we can then mention the answers. Okay. Just wanted to let you know. Jai Gurudev.
Hariom Brahmaraji. So tomorrow there will be only the quiz, right?
Only quiz, yeah. Nana is also going to be there. Hopefully,
Wow.
if his Wi-Fi is fine. So he says he's only going to be a mute witness to all of this. He will chip in only if required, but he'll be basically the quiz. And maybe if we finish the quiz well in time, we have about 60 questions. Then we'll think of what else we can do. We can continue that. All right, Bela, nice to hear you, Bela. I hope everything is fine. I will talk to you later.